Thanks to online software, the last 35 years have seen the world change. But do you think of it as just a lot of change, or do you have a way of making sense of that change and thinking about it? Hi, I'm Laurie Young, and I've been working in the world of software and the internet since around 2005. And in that time, I've helped many companies bring technological innovation to life online and through the internet. On this channel, I help people make sense of technology without getting into code and the really technical details. I believe that technology doesn't need to be stressful. So this video is for anyone who's interested in knowing how internet software has changed the world over the last 3.5 decades or so. Whether it's because you're running a company and you want to know how to use software, whether you're studying history, or whether you're building software yourself and you just want some understanding of how we got to where we are today. We're going to cover the three main waves of change, how they change the world, and out of that you're going to get a way of thinking about how things have changed, and hopefully that's going to help you figure out what's coming next. Okay, let's get into it. So the first theme I want to explore is online shopping. Basically, the internet completely changed how we buy stuff. In 1989, the World Wide Web was invented. Originally, it was just a tool for scientists to exchange data, but a couple of companies very quickly realized that it was going to change many things. They started with shopping. It started with Bookstacks Unlimited, which was the first online bookseller, and then in 1994, Pizza Hut sold a pepperoni pizza online. It was the first time food had been sold online. These early innovators demonstrated that online shopping could work. It was a thing, and they gave way to the rise of what I call the big players. This is the second wave of online shopping. Companies like Amazon and eBay started, and they were taking advantage of the recent invention of SSL, which is a technology that makes it safe to send your credit card details across the internet. They quickly established as big companies. Amazon started selling books and then grew over time to sell more and more things until today, where it sells pretty much anything. eBay introduced direct person-to-person selling, peer-to-peer selling, and made the auction model popular. And then a few years later, PayPal came along and made it very simple for direct payments between buyers and sellers. Fast forward a few years and you get the solidification of the online shopping world. Companies like Etsy sprang up, which made it super easy for any individual to create an online store. And then there's many companies like Shopify that mean if an existing company wants to start selling its produce online, it can pretty much get started in a few days or a week fairly easily. As all of these companies came online and made it easy for people to go shopping online, we started to see a massive increase in the spending that happened on the internet. Starting in 2005, the phrase Cyber Monday was invented, the invention of this holiday period where there were huge online sales. And by 2010, Cyber Monday was earning over $1 billion a year, showing just how much demand there was. So that's the first theme, is the innovation of how we bought stuff and how the internet changed the way that we basically go shopping. The second theme of how the internet changed everything was how companies started to respond to the innovation of the internet. Many companies started to look at the internet, and then a few companies that were known for being disruptive started to do things with it. Started with companies like Southwest Airlines, who introduced the first online ticket sales, bypassing all of the traditional travel agents and the commissions, and Stanford Credit Union, which was pretty much the first online bank set up. It just did some basic features. It let you check your balance, it let you do account transfers, but it set the standard for what would become the growth of online banking. And then companies like Ryanair, another airline, really lent into the online ticket sales world and started to charge for seats and extra things that previously it was really difficult to charge for. These early companies set the stage for how traditional companies that sold things in the real world, could do things slightly different on the internet. And then as the growth of the internet got bigger and bigger and we reached the point of 50% of people online having broadband connections, we saw another wave. You had entities like the BBC here in the UK launching iPlayer. Netflix, which was already a big company sending films in the post through DVD, launched its online streaming service at the same time, and these went on to become absolutely revolutionary. On the theme of existing companies, there was also a huge number of companies that started to commission bespoke software to help with particular parts of their business, everything from supply chain management to customer interactions and call center support. So many of these companies are not household names, so it's hard to think of particular examples, but we can look at, for example, a big international distribution company that would have built software to manage the logistics of where stock was, improving the speed of stock taking, and a whole host of other things. And that continues to this day, even though very rarely do these innovations become household names. So this is the second theme, is how traditional companies, existing companies, started to use the internet to change how they worked. Okay, so the third of these trends is that new companies started to be formed, companies that could not have existed without the internet. And they set out to do a few different things. They started with the social media and the social networking companies, starting initially with companies like 6 Degrees and LiveJournal, which didn't gain the huge following. I imagine a lot of people these days haven't heard of them. And then over time, more and more companies jumped on the bandwagon of social networking. You get companies like LinkedIn, MySpace, Friendster, and then a whole wave of the big companies, the ones we know today: Twitter, now X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and more recently TikTok, completely changing the way that we communicate. I think it's fair to say that communication today bears very little resemblance to the world of mass communication from 20, 30 years ago. The second wave of these new internet native companies were companies that had set out to change the way that other companies do business. Here I'm thinking about companies like Slack, Dropbox, Xero, accounting packages, communication packages, file management companies that really exist to offer services into existing businesses. And there would be a trend there where if enough businesses were building their own software, all doing similar things, someone would set up a company offering that as a service and selling it in a business-to-business context. And then the third thread in these new internet native companies are companies that set out to change the way we live our lives. Companies like Uber, changing the way we travel; Uber Eats Deliveroo, changing the way we order food; Airbnb, changing the way we book accommodation; Spotify, changing the way we listen to music. And increasingly these internet companies are targeting consumers and saying, hey, we can make your life different to how it used to be. So that's the third theme. Okay, so there you have it. There were 3 waves of innovation in which internet software changed the world. It started with online shopping, and within online shopping you had the early innovators, then the growth of the big players, finally the commoditization of online shopping, and then a period of growth as it just grew and grew and grew. The second wave was how existing businesses used the internet. It started with disruptive companies, then went on to more mainstream companies, and all through this, the small to medium companies that aren't household names were jumping on the bandwagon and using internet software to massively improve their efficiency. The final wave was the birth of online companies that existed entirely or predominantly online, and they set out to change the way we communicate, the way other companies do business, and the way that we lived our lives. I should mention that throughout the video I've used the phrases internet and the web interchangeably. They are actually quite different, but for the purposes of what we're talking about today, that difference isn't particularly important. I also didn't mention a lot of companies that were really important. Partially that's because I just wanted to highlight the themes rather than give you a full history. Partially, particularly in the case of Google and Apple, there are reasons why I didn't include them. In the case of Google, it's because they were involved in many of the different themes that we've mentioned, and to try and include them into each one of them I thought would unfairly confuse the story. And in the case of Apple, I think that's more a story of how hardware changed the world, and I wanted to focus on online software for this video. So looking back at this history, it's worth taking a moment to figure out what can we learn from it, and are there any lessons that we can use moving forward. Looking back at the history and the timeline, one of the things that stands out to me is that each of the changes was preceded by a technical innovation, such as the creation of the web, the invention of SSL, or the turning point where 50% of people online had high-speed internet. And another point that really stood out when I was going through the timeline was that a lot of the companies were founded 3 to 4 years before the first time I heard of them, and certainly the first time they became large, worldwide household names. And that's not really surprising. Once a company's founded, it normally takes a few years for it to grow before it gets to the scale where people are likely to have heard about it. Now, taking these two trends together, it allows us to make some predictions about what we're going to see in the future. The first of which is that the future is going to be defined by a technical innovation. The obvious candidate here is AI, which everyone seems convinced is going to change a large number of things, and I agree. I'm not going to make specific predictions about how it changes things, because predictions are hard, especially about the future, and I'll probably get it wrong. But it seems pretty certain that in 5 years' time, if we do another similar video, AI is going to be a really big story. And my second prediction is that the companies that are going to be big names in 5 years are going to include some companies that many people haven't heard of today. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. That was a pretty quick tour of exactly how online software has changed the world. But that's just my take on how it happened, and maybe you disagree or think I've missed something. If so, great, please put it in the comments and let's have a discussion about it. I'm Laurie Young, and I'm here because I don't think technology needs to be stressful. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.